babysitting.
Okay.
Doggy city.
Does anybody remember seriously where we left off last week? And I have a reason for asking that.
We're at the end of the chapter.
We were actually stopped at verse.
My mom said 20.
18.
Up to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we're going to go back. And if you don't remember where I stopped, then that's a good thing, because we stopped in the middle of a section that I kind of wanted to have all together, and I didn't have time. I mean, time just completely ran out. Now let's see if we can get through it today. We're actually going to start with verse 17, even though we've already looked at 17 and 18. We're starting to see in this Boaz's, how do you pluralize that? Boaz.
Boaz, it sounds like you were. Yeah.
Hey, we'll work with it. If I'm wrong, excuse my horrible English. I normally don't have problems with that, but it ends in a Z, and that kind of throws me off, you know.
I don't know about Z.
Maybe Boaz's garden or Boaz's field or Boaz's.
If a name ends in S, you put the little mark up there, but
Yeah,
I don't know what
yeah.
you do with
I'll
have to put that in Google.
Yeah, we'll have to figure that one out. Okay, I'm going to call it what I call it. How's that? And we'll just work with that. If anybody has a problem, please feel free to shut your mouth and go on with life. Say it how you want to say it. Okay, we see his part becoming more and more and more prominent. And the reason why, I believe anyhow, the reason why is because the origins of this, she wanted to go with Naomi, Ruth did, wanted to go with Naomi and have her God be her God. Naomi's God be Ruth's God, okay? I'll throw their actual names in with it instead of just using a personal pronoun. See, I do know a little bit about English. You wouldn't know it by listening to me. How's that? But they went back to the land of around Bethlehem somewhere. I doubt they were right in town. Most of the farms probably weren't in Bethlehem. They were probably around Bethlehem. And she began her quest. And now we've gone from a lady who had, by all rights, some prospect, to one. I mean, if her husband was still alive, she would have come back into the land and had land, property, houses, all that, because that's who, in that time, the property was passed down through was males. You know, here she was married to one of Naomi's sons, so she would have had access at least to a portion of the property. I don't know whether she was married to the firstborn son, secondborn son, 15th born son. Doesn't say.
Where
It
did
was just,
the property go to?
huh?
Where did the property go to?
Until the year of Jubilee, it had to have been passed out of the family.
You mean some of Naomi's family?
Yeah,
Somewhere along
yeah.
the line.
Huh? Elimelech, okay, yeah. It would have gone through Elimelech's line, and it would have carried on all the way down the line through his family. But that's where this kinsman redeemer is going to come into play. She has, as such, nothing going for her. But now we see Boaz coming into the picture, and if you remember, and Dad and I talked about this. I may be overstating, and I don't want to be. That it doesn't say she wasn't attractive, you know. But I don't want to understate that her physical beauty was not what he was after, whether she was attractive or not. I don't always put a lot of stock in the flannel graph stories of old, because sometimes they paint a picture outside of the bounds of what was actually done. I'm pretty sure Jesus didn't wear the same outfit every day. And now here's a question for you. Jesus walked on the water. Okay. Did his clothes get wet?
No, they never changed. They were perfect.
Just his sandals might have gotten a little bit.
No, he didn't even wear out his sandals.
Did he get dirty walking down the road?
No.
These flannel graph stories would indicate not at all. I mean, they were perfectly super. And all of his buddies walking around with him in a group with their hand up like this and then the other one like this as they're standing in this group of 12. So you can't always go by that. Years ago, I was at the fair in Centralia, and I'm going to illustrate this way. That I was at the fair in Centralia, and the Seventh-day Adventists had a booth there, and he was trying to sell me this whole pile of books, and he was opening them up, and he said, "Just look how beautiful Eve is in this, you know, a drawing of her." You know, it's like, dude, come on, really? You think that looks like Eve? First off, she probably wasn't of English descent, you know, would be my guess. I don't know that, but, I mean, probably she wasn't, you know. They're just this stupid impressions that we have. Did Jesus look like this picture we have hanging on our wall? Probably not. That doesn't look actually very Jewish at all. I mean, they've kind of darkened his forehead a little bit, but it doesn't really look all that Jewish.
He's a redhead in that.
Huh?
He's a redhead in that.
Well,
He has kind of
That's
orange
Irish.
tints.
And he doesn't have the halo.
he doesn't have a halo. There you go. Why am I saying all this? Because we can get the wrong impression from what we're taught as children. And I'm trying to stay away from that impression in the aspect of Jesus, well, God, the Godhead, calling Ruth to himself, or mankind to himself. It's not how we look, thankfully. It's what he sees in here. And last week we were talking about how Boaz saw potential in Ruth. Look what she did for her mother-in-law. You know, that's big. That's big. It wasn't look how beautiful she is. That's never ever mentioned in this book. So maybe I have overstated her appearance a little bit. If I have, Ruth, I'm sorry.
Well, at the age she was, girls that age are very pretty if they're going to be pretty at all, because they're just at that right age.
Okay, I'll give it that. And I'm not saying she really wasn't, but I've seen some people that were, as far as humanly speaking, very unattractive that were beautiful inside. And that's what this is about. God sees the inside. Man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. And I don't think he means the pumping organ within us. He sees what's inside. Don't get the wrong impression of heart. Please don't. When I bring that up, that's kind of a tight subject with me. Heart doesn't mean that beating organ. Could you imagine if that was the case and you ask Jesus into your heart and then you have a heart problem and you have to get saved again because you have to have your heart replaced? Or, yeah. I mean, it's just sad that people get that idea. It's like the heart of the matter is the central point. Okay? The heart of an artichoke is the core of an artichoke. How many other ways can you describe it? This is just a common thing. Must be a degree of necessity going on. Oh, okay.
No, she was trying to drink my water.
Oh. Oh, the joys of having a pup in the service. Gotta love it. But so when God looks at the heart, He looks at the inner me. What's in there? My soul. Now I want you to stop and think for a minute with this right here. He saw something in her, and what was it? What made her her? That's what he was seeing. He saw not outward beauty. If there was outward beauty there, that was irrelevant. Otherwise, we would see it mentioned. There was a beautiful girl from Moab that, no. People have probably brought up the idea of, well, she was married. I could show you pictures right now of people who are married. In a person, one could say they were attractive on the outside at all. I could bring them up on that computer right there and show you in a matter of seconds. That's so irrelevant, it's ridiculous. So, how do we work with this? Now let's get into what he's... now, he has supplied her with everything that she needs. So she gleaned in the field until evening, this is verse 17, and beat out what she had gleaned, and it was about an ephah of barley. I don't know how much that is. I don't know that anybody truly knows how much that is, because that isn't a measurement that we use anymore. There's speculation because people think, well, it had to have been about da-da-da, I mean, if you're going to make this much bread out of it, then it's got to be this much, obviously. No, let's be honest with ourselves. We really don't know how much an ephah is. But I want you to understand one thing in this. The size isn't what matters. It's how it came about that matters. What had gone on? He had told his people, you don't just let her pick from the outside. You let her come right up to the threshing floor and get all the wheat she wants, or barley, in this case, barley that she wants. It's hers. She can have all that she wants. And she gathered this much up. She took it and went up into the city, and her mother-in-law saw what she had gleaned, so she brought out and gave back to her what she had kept back after she had been satisfied. Okay, now we have a different aspect to it. You remember, Naomi was bitter. She called herself Mara because she was bitter. I prefer the name Mara because she was bitter. Okay, God's not seeing her that way. Not at all, because there's something special going on there. I'm going to suggest this. God allowed her to see herself that way so that Ruth could go back and tell her something good. And there's a reason for this. I'll get to this in a minute. Boy, I'll give you so. He's, God, I could see this. I'm giving you something good, so that you can go back and you can share it with somebody who's struggling. Now, is she part of the family yet? No. She's technically not. She's learning. She's learning and she's learning and she's seeing the good things that Boaz is doing. And this is again a picture of Christ working with his church, his bride. Okay? We aren't conjoined yet. We aren't the two become one in the most precious sense. Okay. Can we get discouraged? You bet. Was Naomi one of the people who was part of the family? Yes, absolutely. She was from there. How could she not be? She was one of God's children. Ruth wasn't. But now we have somebody who's not saved. I'm going to use our terms these days. Coming to somebody who is saved and saying, guess what? God showed me. And he gave me enough to where I can share with others. I don't know what it might be. How long could the list be? What is the purpose of this? There's two reasons why God would do this. One is because if you don't get a hold of it, it's not yours. And two, the more you share, the happier you're going to end up being. Okay? You're going to learn to trust quicker if you can share it. I can't share what isn't mine. I can try. And if I am just taking, okay, we go into a situation like we're in right here. Technically nothing more than a Sunday school class on January 19th. Okay? And I take somebody else's message.
17.
It's 17.
Really? Why does mine say 119 then?
2 days ahead.
Are you sure your guys are right? Mickey Mouse is telling me. I'll have, okay, we'll say the 17th then. I don't care. It could be the 1st. It doesn't matter. But I take somebody else's message. And I come up here and I try to teach you what they said. It's not my message. I haven't grabbed a hold of it yet. Now, sometimes we can use something somebody said, do it ourselves, and make it ours. Okay? That's the key to this. What somebody else does can give us something that we can share with others if we're willing to make it ours to do that. My long-standing idea toward teaching anything in this, whether it was when I was a pastor or in this situation here, know your subject. And then let God work. My what's the word I'm looking for? My way of getting ready for this stuff is kind of simple, and a lot of people aren't going to they're going to think I'm a nut. Okay. First thing I do is I read it and I read it and I read it. You know, a number of times. Most of the time it's the whole book, so you get continuity. And then pick out the piece that we're working on and read it again, and then stew on it for about 2 or 3 days, and then go back and read it again, and then just simply ask God, what do you want me to share? How does this piece fit in to the Christian life? Whatever, I don't care if it's New Testament, Old Testament, and sometimes that's hard to do. You take some of the chapters in Joshua, where it's nothing but a bunch of tribe names and numbers of people, and Deuteronomy with its laws and things like this. Sometimes it can be hard to do. I admit that. But God gave it to us for a reason. We need to make it ours and then be able to share it. And oh, the joy when you actually can do that. If I was up here trying to teach what somebody else said about the book of Ruth, I would not have any success. I'll guarantee you. Not that I'm having great success with this, because I can make it rather difficult. But as God gives to me, He gives me so much that I can come back and I can say, this is what God has showed me. This is what God has given to me. I've been satisfied and I have more left over. Oh, that you would be satisfied by the amount left over that comes through. That's what's going on with Naomi, or with Ruth and giving to Naomi. Okay? Can a non-Christian do that? You bet. You bet. Once she becomes part of the family, she will never have to glean again. Never. It will not happen. She is still in that process. But she's actively getting involved with it. And she's well on her way. She's well on her way. Now she has a bunch of good that she can take back to Naomi and say, look, I was satisfied just completely, and I've got an ephah, a whole ephah. I don't know if that's a little bit or a whole bunch. I got an ephah. It's here, help. I don't know. Or maybe it's not like that at all. But here you go. Here you go. Let me share with you what was given to me. Now, remember why Naomi was bitter. Because it seemed to her that everything she had was taken away. Everything. Well, now she can start giving, Ruth can start giving to Naomi, and Naomi's need is lessened. Therefore, Naomi will eventually become not bitter, and she will regain, even in her own mind, the status of Naomi rather than Mara. Okay? How does that go about? By this person who doesn't have access to the family gleaning enough to give. And there you have what's going on spiritually. If we're in the Word of God, gleaning all that we can, we will always have enough to give to somebody else. I promise you that. I promise you. But we have to make it ours first. Could Naomi have gone and gleaned as well? Yeah. She wasn't going to. She didn't. We never see that. Reason why is because she felt that she was bitter. When bitterness sets in, it completely changes a person. Doesn't change the situation, doesn't make anything better, but it changes the person. And that person becomes unfruitful. Therefore, she wasn't going to get it on her own. So Ruth went out and gleaned, got all that she could and brought it. Because you have Boaz saying, I want her to have everything. Everything. I want her to go home with so much that she has no need anymore. And if you guys do what I'm telling you to do, you're going to drop all this grain on the ground and let her have it. Yeah, but boss, we're supposed to be like getting your food. There's enough to go around. There's enough. I'll have plenty. I want you to make sure she has plenty. Now, who are these grain workers that are told to do that in a spiritual sense? People like you and me. People like you and me. I want to throw as much around as I can for these people that are out looking for food to be fed. God has told us to do that. Go get as much as you can. So I want you to bring in everything that you can, and I want you to drop it all over the place and let them have what they can carry so that they can be satisfied and give to others and grow in that. Do you think it was growing for Naomi or for Ruth to look at all that she had and say, man, Boaz, look what he did. Look what he did. He left me so much. Look at this. I got all I could eat. And there's all this left over and I can share it with you. And Naomi's probably just going, yeah, whatever. I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I believe it began to develop some excitement for Naomi as well. Maybe it was small to start with, but it was there. And her mother-in-law said to her, where have you gleaned today, and where did you work? Blessed be the one who took notice of you. So she told her mother-in-law with whom she had worked, and said, the man's name with whom I work today is Boaz. The man with whom I worked is Boaz. Think on that for a second. Think on that. Now, you have a real identification. You know what it reminds me of? This guy that was blind, and he was healed by Jesus, and they were picking on him, and who healed you? He said, oh, that I'm not sure, but I do know this, I was blind and now I see. If it was Jesus, great. That's kind of the same thing that's going on here. Who gave you all this? Because her interest was piqued. How did her, I mean, if she'd only ate her fill and walked off, she'd have gone to bed that night feeling pretty comfortable. But not Naomi. Since she was able to give some more, boy, Naomi got to be satisfied as well. Who gave you? Okay, I remember that. Verse 20 says, then Naomi said to her daughter-in-law, blessed be the Lord God, that blessed be he of the Lord who has not forsaken, I'm having trouble reading this morning, the living and the dead. And Naomi said to her, this man is a relation of ours, one of our close relatives. Okay. Whose? Who is the ours? Don't be mistaken. It's not Ruth's yet. It's not Ruth's yet. That's another misconception that people have passed down. Who's the ours here? A generic word. Do people use that today generically? Yeah. There's times when it's used specifically, and I can't deny that. I mean, this is perfectly obvious that there's still things that, I mean, ours can be used very specifically. There's places that I would suggest are ours for me and Diana, or we can say ours in reference to our country and the people therein, or we could say it for any number of things where it can be generic or otherwise. I believe this to be a generic sense. It's a relative of ours. Why? Because they're both. She was already part of the family. Naomi was. She came from there. Well, now we have somebody who can buy me back, somebody who can pay my price, my dowry, so to speak, and now I can be part of the family myself.
She was before when she was married to the Naomi's son.
Okay, but that, when they were off in a strange land, so to speak,
Yeah.
doing their own thing. Now there's a potential for her to come to the family full, where nothing is left out. We're going to see that happen. Now, if you can't see the spiritual connotation of this passage, you're blind. Now we have Jesus going, man, I can pay that price that you can't pay. Now let's go back to your thought for a second, because that does play into it. Once you were mine, then death happened, and you're not. Now I have to redeem that relationship. I'm the only one that can pay the price. I'm giving you all I can give you. I mean, look at this. I'm just heaping on the feed, and I'm letting people drop it all over the place so that you can have it, because I've got more than enough to share with you. Now all you have to do is pick it up, be satisfied, and go your way and give it out as well. I think at this point Ruth was probably more of an Israelite, part of the family, than most Christians are Christians. I say that in quotes, are part of the family. Able to get at will and have somebody care enough to give. And some people obedient enough to throw some of this around where she can grab it. And it's another thought, but I'm going to bring it up. What if the guys had said, "Nah, screw that. If I throw it anywhere, I'm throwing it in my pocket." If they were disobedient, then what would Ruth have gotten? Very little. Very little. Now remember, he still hadn't changed from, you just hang out with my group. You just hang out there. We'll let you in, but you glean. That relationship hadn't gone and connected. Right now, she is still gleaning. Okay? But look what she's done. Now she's given hope. A ray of hope to Naomi. And what was her reply? This one's a redeemer. This one's a redeemer. Okay, now let's put this in. I'm going to probably stop with this verse and then try to finish up the chapter next week, because this is big. I mean, I know I haven't gone very far, but this is so much packed into this little bit. I'm not reading into it. All I'm doing is expelling it and then expanding on it. Here's the thing. Ruth told Naomi, look all the good that I'm getting. And Naomi, part of the family, said, hey, guess what? This one can bring you in. You can be redeemed by this one. Now we have the same thing going on. We got people pecking at food like birds. We've seen it in this building many times. People coming in and pecking. I don't think these stoners, drug addicts, potentially possessed by demon people are coming in not wanting to hear. I think they are. I think this other stuff is just too strong. But what they're doing is they're coming in and they're pecking around. Okay? They're not getting anything. They're not really being fed. They really aren't being fed. But you have other people that come in and they're not a Christian, but they come in and they sit and they glean. They grab food here, they grab food there, they grab food here, they grab food there. And I'm not trying to be mean to anybody, I'm not trying to point fingers or anything. But I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about, Jay Clark. He sat here for how long? How many years maybe? You know, I mean, too many. Okay? Gleaning and gleaning and gleaning. And even, man, God showed me this. But it wasn't until like a year maybe before he died that he said, you know what? I figured it out and now I'm a Christian. I've got something that I can give back. And here it is. I know the one who can redeem. I've seen him. Right here. Somebody who looked and looked and looked, and if we were up here throwing out, if they're looking for, I'm going to use this illustration, barley, and because it kind of sounds the same, we're throwing out BBs. What's he going to get from it? Nothing. Nothing at all. We have to be accurate with what we're giving out. And obedient. Is it for us to decide who sits in these pews? No. I almost got ejected from the church in Orleans because of this. But this is how it really needs to be if we're going to be an effective church. And I hope you'll understand what I'm saying about this, because with everything that I've said, I'm not against people who are not Christians coming into the church. But our job is to go out and have them become Christians so they want to be part of what they are. They are part of the church. Now they need to come and fellowship with that church. It's not that they should just be brought in. An invitation to church is not evangelism. It's a good thing, but it's not evangelism. But all they do is just sit and pick a little bit here and there. And they may get tired of that food and go out and look for something else. If we're out there by our lives showing them, I'm going to drop some right over here. Matter of fact, get your bowl over here and I'll put some in it. And we begin to feed these people outside of the building. And we might begin seeing some people, we use their term, be satisfied. What a thought. And then one day we can tell them, I know who this person is that you're looking for, and he's your Redeemer. Wow! I know the Redeemer now. Do I know all about him? No. But I know enough. I know enough. One other quick thought before we close. And it's got to be really quick. Ruth wasn't even a Christian yet, and she had enough to share. I've often said it, if you know enough to be a Christian, you know enough to share. need all the answers, nor do you. What answers do we need? How about this? Christ died for me, and he died for you. Because I'm a sinner and you're a sinner. But he didn't stay dead. He was buried and then he rose again. And now he just wants to have a relationship with you. If somebody could take your place, okay, you get convicted of a murder charge, and they sentence you to death, and somebody could take your place, what would you think of that person? Would you be mad at them? Would you hate them? Probably not. You would have a particular fondness to that person. And especially if they went ahead and died and then you saw them walking around again. Wait a minute. Something's up with this. I want to know that guy and I want to know him well. I know the Redeemer. And I know that he's alive. And I want you to have that same knowledge. And so God tells us, go out into all the world and preach the gospel. Not a wrong gospel, but the gospel. The gospel is simple. How much do we need to know? That much. Did Christ die for you? Are you sure? Can you say with any positivity that he died for your sins, was buried and rose again? If you can, then there's no reason why you can't tell that to somebody who's struggling. It doesn't mean they're going to listen. I did that with Jim for, I'm going to say, probably 5 or 6 years. To the point of, do you ever sin? Oh, yeah. Well, what do you do about it? How are you going to stand before a holy God when he paid all the price and tell him, well, I was a pretty good guy too, and expect to have him let you in? How can you do that? He is the Redeemer. Like it or lump it. You won't find it better. You won't find another. You won't find anything but the fact that he is the Redeemer. That's what we're looking at right here. And he's got everything. I'm giving you all this. Look at all this that I've given you. Now all you got to do is just come to me, all you who labor. Who's that? The ones that are gleaning and are heavy laden, ones who have gleaned and got a bunch but still haven't had a place to put it down. And I'll give you rest for your soul. Why? Because that's what he's all about. That's what he's all about. Oh, I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time because this has gotten to be quite a fun morning in my opinion. Because I'm so encouraged in it. I don't have to have all the answers. I don't have to. All I need to do is know the Redeemer. That's where we're at right here. She just Naomi just pointed him out to Ruth. There's the Redeemer right there. He can buy us back into the family. Sweet. Now I know. I know. Oh, let's not give up on this. If we're not dumping out wheat, grain, food for the hungry, we're missing out. We're missing out.
You know, Ruth could have said, about me, I don't want to have anything to do with that guy.
Yep.
You know, he
Yep.
might be a cool dude, but I don't want to have anything to do with him.
But look what happened. You know, I mean, we know the story. We've gone over this and over this and over this in years past. Let me try this out and see if that's going to work out. No. When everything was said and done, she just went in and gave herself to him. Just try it and see. If God don't give you himself because you gave yourself to him, then you can come back and tell me I was wrong. Don't give him a try. Don't do that. I hate that term. Give Jesus a fair shake. No. Get in there and do your job. You go give yourself fully to Jesus. And as the old motto goes, taken off of a passage of Scripture, wholly follow thy God. See, I was paying attention back in the 6th, 7th, 8th grade. If you don't, look what you got to lose. You could be completely saved and everything could be great if you would just go to the Redeemer and give yourself to him. Now, I said something there that you probably are wondering about. Everything could be great. I'm not talking about all my physical needs ever met. That's not what I'm talking about. Great isn't that. Some of the best times I've ever had were hard. Really hard. But I look back and I go, man, look what God did. What a joy. It gives me all sorts of hope. I don't have to worry. See, here we are, 5 minutes late already. Time is wrong, Pop. Can we put a half-volt battery in that so we can slow it down a little bit?
The date was wrong, so why not the time?
Yeah. Put up a calendar back there instead. Until Wednesday. Oh, that we would understand this, though, and live for it. What a joy. I encourage you, please, to engage it next week, and we'll see what God has to say next week in it as well. What a tremendous thing. Let's pray. Lord, thank you for being our Redeemer, for loving us so much that all we have to do is put our trust and faith in you, and we're good. All we have to do is come to you, and we're good. We've been given everything just handed to us because the whole price has been paid by you. And here we are trying to do it on our own. Oh, how sad. You told us in your example of a prayer to pray in such a way as to say things like, give us this day our daily bread. And we give us this day the ability to work and earn our daily bread. Oh, Lord, teach us to rely on you. Help us to love you. Help us to come to you for all that we have. Thank you for all that you're doing and all that you're going to do. Till next week, Lord, I pray that you would keep us safe, and I thank you for it in your name. Amen.